Hi there, my name is Erik and I play bass. Happy New Year, and today we're gonna talk about this. My new pedalboard. And just for good measure, let's have a quick look at the back as well, so you can see everything. So before we get started with this video, you can in a way consider this a sponsored video, as both Soulman pedalboards and CIOKS and EBS were kind enough to sponsor me and give me discounted prices and send me free patch cables and all of that good stuff. However, I was the one who reached out to these companies and asked them if they were interested in doing so. So there is that. I was the one who initiated the contact. But with that being said, let's get started with this board. So this pedalboard right here is the M55 from Soulman. So I met Mr. Soulman himself at the Great Scandinavian Guitar Show in 2022. We chatted a bit and we decided to try and do something together, and this, I guess you could say, is the end result. So this is the M55 pedalboard. M55 of course stands for medium 55. This one features two additional Soulman modules. We got the power module here that allows me to turn the pedalboard on and off with the flick of a switch, which is really nice once we get to the power supplies, as they don't have an on-off button. They are just on as soon as you plug them in. And we've also got a nice patch bay signal module thingy here on the front, the SM4C. So the SM4C is routed in a pretty particular way for my setup. I'm gonna label it properly here once I get some more use for my label maker. It ran out a few weeks back and I haven't had the time to refill it. So we've got your average ordinary guitar input, which is where my bass goes, and that one goes into input number 1 of the neural DSP quad Cortex. Then we've got this one right here, which goes into effects return 1 of the neural DSP quad Cortex. The third input output thing here is the capture out of the quad Cortex. And last but not least, the fourth one is out 3 on the quad Cortex, which is the one that I normally run to my amp on stage. I was considering at first to use one of the XLR outputs and route one of them to one of these outputs. However, I find that these are pretty easy to get access to when on stage. I think it took away a bit of the confusion, so to speak, by having these left here and easy to plug in and out of on the unit itself, so to speak. The reason why I went with return 1 here as the second input is that that's the one that's being used when you're doing neural captures. So it's pretty easy to just plug in the output of the gear that you're capturing into input 1, use the capture out here, and then use this one as your guitar input, so to speak. So I actually had some planning behind this. So yeah, this board feels amazing, nice and sturdy. All of the units are attached using dual lock, M3 dual lock, so they are pretty nicely stuck here. The power switch module is something that I want to address before we go any further. This is something that I've kind of wanted for a long while for my pedal boards. I've been using the CIOKS DC7 for I think about 2 years now. It's been great. I think it's the 3rd year actually, sorry. It's a great power supply. However, once you plug it in, it's on. I've been using the DC7 as well for years and years and years, and it's the same with that one. When you plug it into the wall wart, it's on.
Oh, it is on like Genghis Khan wearing Sean John in Bhutan.
This actually allows me to go power off without unplugging everything. So that's nice. Next up in this entire ensemble, I guess, is here on the back. So a brand new addition for this year is the little fella down here, the CIOKS Crux. Crux. I don't know how you pronounce it properly. Horcrux, as in Harry Potter, This is my Crux. This one is something that I've been waiting for a long time to get a hold of, and I guess the lack of components available have been really problematic for manufacturers, and I guess this one has been no exception. This little fella right down here powers the neural DSP quad Cortex beautifully. Before, like for 2 years now, I've been using this setup, which is two CIOKS 8800, I think they're called, flex cables, which allow me to, you know, take two outputs and sum them into one, doubling the amplitude, ampere, I don't know, and then running those into one as well, giving me this nice mess of a cable. This has been working fine. It has powered the quad Cortex beautifully. However, it's quite a bit of cable to you know, wrap around down here underneath the pedalboard. So I was really thrilled when when CIOKS announced the Crux. This also gives me access to these 4 outputs here on the DC7. Before those were you know, taken by the quad Cortex, and now I have access to those, and that makes signal routing or power routing, I should say, a whole lot easier, as I now don't have to use the ones here on this side exclusively. I can actually use those. Sorry about the mess here on the you know, downside here of the pedalboard. This kind of turned into a big intersection of things that needed to go here, so that's why it's a bit messy here. However, it works, so I'm happy with how it turned out. And I guess some of you who are watching my channel are curious, like, does it really power up the quad Cortex? So let's find out, shall we? So power module on. The light goes on. And as you can see, it's upside down. The quad Cortex is powering up beautifully on the CIOKS Crux. Like I said, it's really nice to have access to those 4 outputs again, especially when I'm doing neural captures and perhaps have a really thirsty pedal that needs a bit more voltage, or ampere, sorry, not voltage. So that's really nice. So that's the CIOKS section, the power section of this pedalboard, and the CIOKS Crux. Damn, I'm happy that I finally got a hold of it. Like I said, I've been waiting for this for a whole long time. So as you can see now, the quad Cortex is powered up and everything works just fine. So I'm gonna do like that to make things a bit easier on my behalf. So next up, we've of course got the third component, and that is the EBS flat patch cables, which are one of the things that allow me to do this crazy setup. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cables running from the quad Cortex to various ins and outs on this pedalboard. Like I said, input 1 here on this module here goes like so. So you got input 1 going there. Input 2 of the quad Cortex is hooked up to the Line 6 Relay G70. So whenever I'm doing a live gig and using my wireless, I change the input on the quad Cortex to input 2, which allows me to use the wireless unit. Return 1 is routed to the second input jack here on the board, like I said. In effects loop number 2, we've got one of my all-time favorite pedals, the Suncoast LM1 dynamic limiter, which is just a great unit, great limiter that feels great to play through. So I've been incorporating that. I've been using that quite extensively in my live setup, and I've used it in the effects loop of my amps. However, I find that this is just as good and easier to get access to, you know, adjusting the threshold and whatnot. We've also got a flat MIDI cable here going from the MIDI Out of the quad Cortex, which is going into this one, the Keith Macmillan MIDI expander. And this allows me to send MIDI messages from the quad Cortex to the Keith Macmillan 12-step, which I'm using quite extensively when I'm playing live. I'm using this to trigger all of the keys for Infinite Maiden to trigger, you know, intros and backing tracks and all of that. Well, not backing tracks, intros. Sadly, we do everything live, so I need to be atop of my foot game whenever we're playing. And there are no pre-recorded keyboard parts. I do everything live, which has been working out pretty great so far. So there is that. It's a good challenge to do that. And also worth mentioning is, of course, the Apple AirTag. I got this idea, I think it was from Red Shawl. I've attached an Apple AirTag to this pedalboard using some dual lock as well. So I always know where this pedalboard is, which is nice. So that's pretty much it. As far as tones go, the neural DSP Quad Cortex has been such a great unit to have both live and here in the studio setting. I really enjoy using it live, and now using it also as a MIDI controller for the 12-step has really allowed me to slim things down a bit. I did put together a board pretty much like this using the Pedal Train Classic Junior. However, that one did not incorporate the Suncoast LM1 in a way that I wanted to, and this is just a whole lot sleeker and nicer and tidier, and yeah, really happy with how all of this has turned out, and I can't wait to bring this out to a gig. To be honest with you, I'm really grateful that Soulman, EBS and CIOKS wanted to be a part of this board build, and yeah, the CIOKS Crux, really great addition to this board. Feels great to have access to all of the power outlets of the DC7. The neural DSP Quad Cortex, I can't say enough good things about it. This one, the Line 6 G70, I've been talking myself blue about how great of a wireless unit this is, and as far as I understand, it's discontinued, and I can't really find something that's equally as good in terms of, you know, ins and outs and stuff like that. Suncoast LM1, great limiter, really easy to use, even us bass players can use it, and the Keith Macmillan 12-step has just proven itself to be such a great, you know, addition for me as a player, and something for me to really, you know, really help me, you know, expand my palette as a player, if you will. So with all this being said and done, my name is Erik and I play bass, and this was my pedalboard build. Links to Soulman, neural DSP, EBS, CIOKS are all listed down here in the video description. These links are not affiliated with me. I don't get any percentage of you clicking on them. So I just wanted to give them a big shout out and thanks for helping me set this board up. So with all this being said and done, my name is Erik and I play bass, and I'll see you guys and gals and cats and dogs in the next video. Happy New Year. Take care. Bye.